So we finally get to talk about the Nintendo Switch and see how this specific product is going to hold up in 2023. Now there have been so many different news and just so much different development going on with this specific product, and I would argue that this product is probably going to see either some of the biggest or some of the least differences going on in this year. Now there's going to be different games coming out and everything like that, but I will tell you this year is either going to be another one of those years where we just have, a bunch of games coming out but no new product, or we may actually be seeing some big news on the next big major release of console from Nintendo. So whether it's the direct successor to the Nintendo Switch, maybe it's like an at-home console, maybe it's not even a portable console, who knows? But for this console, it's still in a very, very good spot. This original Nintendo Switch that I bought back in 2019, it's not the latest and greatest anymore. There are tons of scratches on it, and there's been 2 different models of the Nintendo Switch since then, but I still love this console, and I think there's just so much power, and I'm just still wondering, people are still playing with the Wii, people are still finding new ways to go and play Wii games and all these other things, so I think the Nintendo Switch is not going anywhere probably for the next 20 years, but obviously we're going to be seeing some new successors to this console and all that stuff too. So with that kind of long-winded intro, I'm going to tell you, I think the Nintendo Switch is still completely worth it for sure, and I think it's still going to be one of those consoles that's completely worth it years and years and years from now. So first of all, with the outside, and most of us probably know how this console's kind of held up and just the way this console was when it first came out. It was a portable console, somewhat of a successor to the Nintendo Wii U mostly, but also kind of a successor to the Nintendo 3DS lineup as well. I think people tend to forget that. That 3DS lineup was awesome, and I love the 3DS. I like the Wii U as well. I own the Wii U, and I thought that console had a lot of good games. Obviously, we all know the marketing of that console wasn't that great. The Nintendo Switch, though, really wasn't a massive jump in the performance segment from the Wii U either, much like how the Wii wasn't a massive performance jump from the Nintendo GameCube. But Nintendo did a great job marketing this console. They had a ton of amazing games that already came out for this console, and they've already ported over lots of games from the previous consoles to this console as well, making this one of the consoles with a ton of games available for it, even not really at launch, but over time, it's definitely, kind of blossomed into this really good console that can play tons of different games. Now, the main thing about this console, I would say, is the portableness as well as the, docking mode. So you have the ability of playing this same exact console everywhere and anywhere you want to go, and then you can dock this console up and you can play those games at home if you want to. And I think that concept is still very cool, and I do hope Nintendo ends up keeping that for that next gen console. And I think, at least for me personally, it's held up very well in that standpoint. There still are some issues though, and I'll kind of explain that now. Over time, obviously, this was a console that I bought secondhand, so it was used even before I got it. And you can definitely tell, when I bought it, there were a few scratches and all this other stuff, but everything worked fine. Nowadays, because I've used the Nintendo Switch over time, the dock can go ahead and get messed up sometimes. It takes a couple extra times to go and dock it up correctly. If I'm, playing in portable mode, it can, not turn on properly sometimes. There's lots of issues that can happen. So this console is not necessarily showing its age, but it's definitely starting to get to that point where maybe there can be more, hardware failure, maybe buttons stop working. But one of the biggest issues I've ever had with any of these Nintendo Switches is the Joy-Con drift. This is something that a lot of people have been experiencing, and for myself included, it is a very annoying thing. I've had it on my Joy-Cons I've had it on my blue Joy-Cons for a while. I've bought new Joy-Cons. I haven't had it here yet, but still to this day, I see so many complaints on Reddit and in my YouTube comments about people saying that their Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons are having that Joy-Con drift. And that can be very annoying for a lot of people, including myself. You buy this new console, you end up using it for a few months, and then the Joy-Cons end up drifting, and you have to spend a bunch of money to repair them, and you have to spend a bunch of money to replace them. Nintendo does repair them for free, so keep that in mind, but it's still kind of one of those annoying things. So that's one of the things I hope Nintendo can end up fixing for their next generation of consoles. But overall, I think the hardware itself is still holding up, I would say, decently well for the most part. Now, this year, I played the most amount of Switch games I think I've ever played before. I've played so much Super Smash Bros. It's probably the game I've played the most of, more than any other game. I played New Super Mario U Deluxe. I played that game. I just finished up Super Mario 3D World. I'm still in the middle of playing Super Mario Odyssey. Even though I've never beaten that game, I played it a lot. And I think I've been playing A Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I still have not finished that game, but I kind of pick it up and play it whenever I can. And this year, I mean, I've played the most probably I've ever played ever before. And I love it. I love playing these games. Some things to keep in mind though is that with this console, it is, again, when it's coming down to this showing its age portion, this console wasn't the most powerful thing when it first came out. It was, I would say, maybe a little bit more powerful in some areas than the Nintendo Wii U, but since then, I mean, the developers of these consoles, they're kind of stuck in this weird phase where either they go ahead and just continue to go ahead and, make games for this console, or where they keep making games for this kind of underpowered console compared to nowadays, or they go and focus in on other areas. And it seems like a lot of developers are doing basically what, developers did when the Nintendo Wii came out, was that they would make the same game for the, Nintendo Switch and let's say PlayStation 5, but they would obviously tune down the graphics quite a bit so it can run on that type of console, because there is just so many amount of people who own a Nintendo Switch that if they weren't putting it on the Nintendo Switch, well then that would probably cause a lot of people to be upset, and they would be missing out on a massive market share from just the portable, community alone. So that's probably one thing to keep in mind there too. But this year, I mean, there's probably going to be some big development, like I mentioned earlier on in this, video. I think this console is going to be getting probably some major news of its next successor. There was basically news that Nintendo canceled the Nintendo Switch Pro. There was basically news that Nintendo canceled the Nintendo Switch Pro, which was basically pro version of the Nintendo Switch. And I think that was a pretty good call from Nintendo. I don't think we need another Nintendo Switch model. I think we need to see that next, direct successor. I think we need to see a more powerful Nintendo Switch. And if they were to come out with a Nintendo Switch Pro, that just means we wouldn't even be getting probably the next gen console for another 2 years. And I don't think Nintendo needs to do that. I think they're in a really good spot where they can go ahead and start kind of talking about the next generation of console, making some major headway that way. And then when that comes out, maybe the Nintendo Switch is already kind of about, maybe the OLED Switch would probably be about 2 or 3 years old at that point. And then a lot of people would just end up buying that next generation Nintendo, console, whatever it is. So this year, last year we saw some big development with the Nintendo Switch OLED model. That was a really good console. And even the Nintendo Switch Lite I like a lot too. But with this original Switch, I still find myself playing with this console probably the most because I've already had everything kind of, stored on this console. It's very easy to kind of transfer all that kind of stuff, but for the most part, I don't really feel the need to go and switch from my Nintendo Switch to my OLED Switch all that often. I play my OLED Switch when I'm in portable mode, but otherwise when I'm in docked mode, I'm almost always using my Nintendo Switch, my original one, in the docked position. So maybe that's one other thing where I don't really feel like I'm missing out on too much either, just because I'm always kind of using the best of both worlds. But another thing that I've kind of seen as well is a lot more complaints about the original Nintendo Switch and even the OLED Switch. I haven't really noticed the fans kicking out on my Nintendo Switch, the original one, all that often, but I notice it on my OLED Switch now. But the reason for that is because I have my Nintendo Switch docked up all the time, my original one. When I come close to it and I hear it, I can hear just how much that Nintendo Switch is working to play games like Super Smash Bros. And all these other games as well. When I compare it to a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X or S, obviously those consoles kick on the fans all the time too, but it's not nearly as much or as loud as the, Nintendo Switch is. So I think that is something that Nintendo needs to work on as well. Hopefully optimizing these consoles for, these games, because I've seen a lot of people complaining about how certain games that are coming out now or have been out for a while just are a little bit more sluggish, and they're starting to see massive dipped frames and everything like that on a console that this game was designed for. So hopefully Nintendo can work on the power portion in the next console, and hopefully they don't butcher the marketing. But I do think the Nintendo Switch original one is still very much worth it. There's so much I feel like I still have to say about this console, but I think it's still a very good purchase. It's going to be around for many, many years to come. And like I said, people are still playing around with the Nintendo Wii. People are still playing tons of Nintendo Wii games. And I don't think that's going to be any different with the Nintendo Switch. This console has a massive library behind it, and I'm kind of excited to see what the future of this console kind of holds. So that pretty much covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.